On this episode, we talk to Kerry Stephens from KFS Recruitment. We talk about getting hired and hiring in the lending space, tips for both candidates and lenders, and much, much more. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And now, let's spend 30 minutes in finance.
So I'm Kerry Stephens. I'm the director at KFS Recruitment, and we're a UK-based financial services recruitment agency. We actually focus on the lending sector and specialist lenders, mainly small to medium-sized lenders, embryonic lenders especially, and we have 7 staff across the UK.
Perfect. And thanks for coming on, Kerry. Really appreciate your time. Are you able just to sort of very briefly run through what actually got you into the industry and obviously why the lending sort of aspect of recruitment?
Yeah, I completely fell into recruitment. So I was working in sales. I was selling cars for Rover, the car company,
Oh, yeah.
and I went home to my hometown, Rayleigh in Essex, and I met uh, the love of my life, who is the guy I sat in class with from 11 to 16,
Wow.
and we started dating when I was 22. And after 3 months, I moved back down to Essex, and I just got a job in as a waitress and as a barmaid, which is a profession that's just so much fun because it's that interaction. Just whilst I was finding the right sales position to crop up, and it just so happened that I was serving a customer who was a director of a recruitment agency, and he said, "Have you ever thought about being in recruitment?" And I said, "Well, absolutely, but I've just never had the opportunity." So he said that he was going to be running interviews the following day. So I went to the interview, which was fantastic, and I still keep in contact with Chris now. And he made me do one of those personality profiles that are very, very interesting to do. And it came up that I was too empathetic to be a recruitment agent. I I
It's too
wasn't going to
nice.
be I wasn't going to be salesy enough. I didn't like confrontation, and all of these kind of things. And I literally felt like I was stepping out of the shower, completely exposed, because everything that he was saying in this profile was me, and it still is me today. And he said, on this profile, I don't think that you're supposed to be a recruitment agent. And so I looked at him. I was like, okay, well, I feel that that's an accurate that's an accurate description of me. And he said, well, I'm going to give you a chance anyway. And literally, I have not looked back. So I started off in IT recruitment, which wasn't right for me because I'm not really passionate about the profession. And then I fell into lending recruitment when a recruitment agency, a really good recruitment agency in my hometown was recruiting. And I promised to go for an interview just to help a rec to rec agent, so somebody who recruits recruitment agencies. Um, I promised I'd go along for it just to kind of help her get her numbers up, so she'd interviewed enough candidates that week. So so I popped along, not wanting to go for this job in Leigh-on-Sea, and it just so happened that when I met the director of that company, and he specialised in mortgages and insurance, there was so much synergy between me and him, um, and our backgrounds, that immediately I just thought to myself, I want to work for you. Whatever profession you're working for, I think that we will make a good team. And I spent nearly 10 years with that agency. And initially, I started off recruiting for mortgages. So it was primarily for mortgage brokers, mortgage advisory. So people like John Charcoal, the Mortgage Times, and then the mortgage lenders, the specialist mortgage lenders, people like Platform, GMAC, GE Lending, SPML, um, lovely, lovely lenders. And then after that, I didn't know where I was going. I could just recruit anything. I just wanted to talk to people. But the more people that I spoke to in lending, the more I realised that it's a really lovely sector filled with great people. And every time I go to an expo or every time I've been to a roundtable event or just some kind of congregation where there's conversation in the sector, I've always felt like it's been enjoyable and interesting, and I felt like coming home. So um, about 13, 14 years ago, um, my career diversified a little bit. In fact, primarily over the last crash. And I had a call from a bridging lender to say, look, I know that you recruit for mortgage lenders, but would you look at recruiting for a bridging lender? We'll teach you about the sector. And if you recruit for people for the 5 vacancies that we've got, and you recruit for those well, then you can have our account exclusively. So I went up to London to meet them. Really nice company. And I recruited one of the vacancies that I recruited for was a BDM vacancy. And that year, that BDM went to win the BDM of the Year at the B&C Awards. So
Oh,
they
nice.
invited
It's a good
me
find.
to the,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. They most of the BDMs actually since have actually been placed by me as well. But that first encounter at the B&C Awards, and they sat me on a table with them, and then they literally walked me round to every lender that was in there and said, "Hey, who's dealing with your recruitment? You should be using Kerry." And that one night, my whole career changed. And instead of recruiting primarily for mortgages, I then switched to recruiting primarily for bridging, which was a much more buoyant area in the last crash. And as we're seeing at the moment or going to see, it's quite a buoyant market in rocky times now.
Yeah.
So I just feel incredibly grateful that actually happened because I didn't intend to be in lending. I didn't. All I knew was that I really love speaking to people. I really love understanding people. I really like getting to the culture of people and seeing, how people fit together, how people work together. That's really been a big, big passion of mine. But the sector itself, I couldn't leave now because everybody has just been so welcoming and so kind that I just found this little niche in the world where I just feel, yeah, as I say, I know I've said it before, it feels like coming home. So that's how I got into it, and that's why we're primarily in the specialist lending sector, dealing with bridging development, specialist mortgages, a little bit of asset and invoice as well,
Mm.
and the mortgage brokerages.
Yes, it's definitely in the specialist sort of sector or specialist lending sector. It is very, very close knit. Like if you go on LinkedIn and have a look at anyone that I know, there's probably so many sort of similar connections, and you're also connected to these people and you talk to people, and obviously we were having a chat yesterday, and sort of names came up that you'd recently spoken to, and it's very small, and obviously we've spoken in the past, and it's very nice. It's close knit. A lot of people sort of have been in several sort of lenders, and they sort of help out, and that's why it is nice, and I've been in quite a while. How long ago did you start um, doing sort of
Uh,
specialist lending and that kind of thing?
Nearly 20 years now. So
Okay,
I think it's
so
been
well,
19 years for specialist lending. And then uh, when I say specialist, I mean buy to let, um, that kind of lending. And then
yeah,
bridging, I think it's been 16 years, maybe.
wow, yeah. So you
Yeah.
probably know more about about it than I do.
Well,
This
we've
space,
we've got we've got 594 mutual connections, David, apparently
wow,
on LinkedIn. It is a small world.
yeah, that's probably all
Um
of my connections. So, which just goes to show exactly what I was saying, and I think yeah, it is. It's not surprising really that once you do a good job for someone as well, that you just get sort of recommended, and as with sort of KFS, what does that stand for? Firstly, I'm guessing Kerry something Stevens, or is that presumptuous
oh,
of me?
yeah. Oh, I hang my head in shame, really. It's the worst. I'm not proud of the company name, I've got to say. It's so close to KFC for a start. Everyone's like, oh, you're at KFC Recruitment. No, no, we're not. I do like a KFC every now and then, but no, it's not KFC. My middle name is Louise, so it's not my middle name. It's Kerry's Financial Services, is what I was thinking
Ah,
initially.
yep, no, that's
Um, but my fiance is Frost. So I thought we've been engaged for 10 years, which is just shameful. He's lovely.
what's he
He's
waiting
lovely. We're
for?
still in love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently there's no need to rush things. But so theoretically my name would be Kerry Frost Stevens. So I was toying with the idea that it covered both areas, but the longer it goes where I've remained unmarried, the more I think that probably I should have thought of a different name. But it's too late now. I've often toyed with changing the company name, and when I've spoken to people in the market, they've just said, Kerry, it doesn't really matter.
No,
Once
it
once a
doesn't.
brand is being
Yeah.
used, they're just gonna. It doesn't really matter what the company name is.
It's you and your
So
employees, and that's what they get to know. Probably some of them
yeah,
don't even know it's KFS; they just know it's Kerry or or whomever
that's it. Yeah,
that they're working with. And you said you've got 7 sort of members of staff. Do they all sort of? Was that right? Firstly, 7 of them.
there's 7 of us, including me.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, we have 3 consultants. So you've got Jan Gallagher, and Jan is the Queen of the North. So she's based up in the Liverpool area. And before becoming a recruitment consultant and joining the dark side with me, I placed Jan as a um, regional account manager at Mast Haven.
Oh
God,
wow.
about a decade ago, and she has been a BDM and a mortgage broker for the last 30 years, nearly. She's got more knowledge than anybody I've, I've spoken to in recruitment ever in terms of understanding products across the whole suite of, bridging development, mortgages, secured loans. She understands it from an insider's perspective. She's managed a team of national BDMs. She's, been in heavy meetings internally as part of a lender. She's run her own mortgage brokerage. So she's really seen it as firsthand. And then she's come to recruitment. And she's hit the ground running. And she has such an incredible name in the market. She's very lovable, very, very funny. And she's our Queen of the North. So we've got Jan, and then we've got Natasha Nichols. And Natasha Nichols has been with us a couple of years now. She's amazing. She deals with all of the Southern vacancies. She used to work for the same recruitment agency that I worked at, not at the same time, but we had kind of similar training. And I really liked the training that I had within that company. So that spoke volumes for me. She's very similar in the way that she works to me as well. So she manages a lot of the London and the southern home counties lenders. Um, she's heart on your sleeve. She's yeah, very very quick. Works a lot of hours. And then you've got myself, and I do what I can from a key account management perspective, but I'm doing a lot of delegation and working with the consultants as well at the moment, because my focus is I guess more about the growth of KFS recruitment and what it's going to become over the next couple of years. I've then got Leanne. So Leanne's been with me since I think month 2. So she's been with me since 2016, early 2016 when I set up KFS. And she started off as PA, but she has recruited people. She's been on a lot of the meetings. She goes to the expos, the awards. She's our operations director now. She's my Pepper Potts. I call her Pepper Potts to everybody that I speak to, and I if I could have a contract where I put her on a 9-month notice period, I would, because she is the golden tapestry, really, the golden thread of our tapestry. And then we've got some consultants who are coming up through the ranks as resources, as senior resources. So we've got Megan Fox, who's got the best name out of all of us, to be fair. It's always a conversation starter.
Yeah.
Um, and we've got Ellie Cotgrove, and they support the consultants in finding the candidates. So they're doing absolutely brilliantly. And we've got Joe, who is our administrator and our operations executive. And then we use a marketing company as well for a bit of marketing. So yeah, it's exciting times really. I
Yeah,
think
and
that
you
we probably will grow again in the next few months.
yeah,
Um,
because I was just going to say, obviously, you said obviously a little earlier you're focusing more on the sort of the macro sort of view of KFS. What is the sort of end goal for you? Where do you see it going?
it's a hard thing because I guess that when people understand, so my team are based primarily in Essex, um, which is where I come from, and then I've got Jan up north. I'm based over in Sydney, which I know is extremely left field. And when people hear that I'm based in Sydney and I work nocturnal hours, it kind of leaves them a bit perplexed. But it does work. So I'll work,
Mostly
say,
jealous, I would
10.
say. That's the
And
yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily. You don't need to be jealous. It's been raining all year. It's 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 cold, hot, hail. You never know. In fact, since I've been here 6.5 years, and it was droughts, and then it was fires, and then it was COVID, and then it was floods, and we're now just on this sporadic 4 seasons in one day. You're
Yeah.
constantly carrying around clothes because it's like you need a jumper, then you're really humid, and it's yeah, it feels as though I feel like I'm going through the menopause a little bit early, to be fair, on days like this. And um, it's it's challenging because I work through the night, so 10 p.m. till 5 a.m. Monday to Friday,
Oof.
which
Yeah.
obviously um, has its implications in terms of health implications, but um, it does enable me to look after my 3 children in the day and do the school runs and free me up in that sense. So I work, I manage 2 lives, but not very much sleep. So I guess over the next couple of years, I would like to not necessarily go into Australia because I did think about it, going to Australian lending because that's there must be a space for that. There's a lot of development going on here, but the
Hmm.
people that I love are in the UK, so they're not. Finding those the people that I work with. Some of those people I've known for nearly 20 years. They feel like family, um, and I can pick up the phone and know that I can ask them anything, talk about anything. It's very much like barriers down, and I feel most authentically Kerry when I'm on the phone to my work clients. And I don't know if I want to generate that again. From a business perspective, I probably should, but it's hard to let go of something that's my baby. So I think that the natural progression for KFS will be to add one more consultant, one more resourcer on bridging and development, and then take somebody else, whether that be in asset finance or whether that be in insurance, and just slightly left field it in England, so that we've got another string to our bow.
Yeah, and obviously buying back your time, I guess, is the ultimate goal for all sort of business owners, really. It's you and only you, and
Yeah.
then you sort of bring it in, and fortunately, and from the sounds of it, you've got a great team that you can sort of hand things down to, and know that all of your sort of clients are in safe hands. As it is an interesting one with recruitment, and it's something that I don't know if you're happy to sort of chat about this, but how does the actual sort of, pay work for someone listening in, sort of getting the sort of income from the business? Obviously, it all depends on you actually finding successful candidates. But is it based on, as I've heard a few sort of different options, sort of flat fees or like 1 month salary or 2 months or 3 months or whatever? How does that typically work? And is it different in the lending space to all other spaces, or are you happy to
Yeah,
briefly
of
chat
course.
about
Yeah,
that?
I'm a complete open book. So there are some agencies that charge a retainer, and they'll charge monthly, regardless of whether that company's got a vacancy or not. And when the vacancy comes up, they'll fill it. but it's part of their retainer package that they have. With us, we're quite typical in the way that recruiters work. So if a lender comes to us, so say Bank A comes to us and says, right, Kerry, we've got this underwriter vacancy. It's going to be paying, say if in bridging, it's going to be paying between 45 and 60. It's going to be working in London, preferably 5 days a week. And here's a job specification. Can you go and find somebody for us? What we will do is we'll put that on 5 forums. That'll be on LinkedIn, it'll be on Reed, it might go out onto Indeed, it'll go onto our website, it'll go onto our Facebook, onto our Instagram. So it'll go to 5 or 6 different sources. And then from there, you'll have all of us kind of looking through the candidates. There isn't a fee chargeable at all until somebody starts with a business. So say if I spoke to 50 underwriters. Underwriters are honestly very rare at the moment. But say if I spoke to 50, of those 50, 12 were potentially looking. Of those 12, I received 7 CVs. Of those 7 CVs, I like 3. I send across 3 CVs. I don't really want to send clients more than 3 to 5 CVs per job, because otherwise they're just they're ploughing through all the stuff that they're trying to pay me a fee to save their time rather than elongate the process by chucking every candidate at them. So I try and send 3 CVs. Of those 3 CVs, I want them all to have an interview. They'll have 2 interviews. And then if nobody's successful, after all of those hours of work for everybody, there's no fee and nobody makes any money.
Yeah.
But hopefully, we trust ourselves and we trust our service. We trust our database and our contacts. So that doesn't really often happen. You normally find that one person out of those 3 will get the job, and our rate will go from 15 to 22% typically, based on the basic salary. So if it's an underwriter and they get 45,000 as a starting salary, then it will be I think 18% of that 45,000 or 15% of that 45,000. I think it's 18 at that level. And then if it's a BDM, it will be based on the salary and the car allowance together. So anything that's a taxable income. So, when they say, oh, they'll be on 45K, but there'll also be these really big benefits, and they'll also get a 20% or 10% bonus at the end of the year, and they'll get the other bits and bobs. We don't charge on any of that. It's just the taxable basic and car. So yeah, that is okay. And then that is chargeable from day 30 of them being present in the office. So the invoice goes in the day that they start, and then the company has until day 30 to pay their bill. Typically, that works really well. In an uncertain market, there has been notoriously, especially with more embryonic lenders who are kind of trying to juggle the early day finances of running an organisation. There can be a little bit of complexity there and negotiation there into, please pay your bill by date. That'd be fair enough.
Yeah, I can imagine, because it's not a insignificant amount of money, but it's not a huge amount for if you're getting the right candidate. They can make their money back rather rapidly, especially for BDM roles and that sort of thing. You'd hope anyway. And it is an interesting one.
There are a lot of agencies that charge a lot more than us. So I don't think that we're unfair. And I do agree that when it's an established organisation, when it's an established lender, it's a spit in the ocean in terms of the fee, really.
Yeah.
But when it's a smaller organisation, it's a startup, I do understand when there's investors involved, that things have to be planned properly so that the expenditure isn't too complex within month 1 when they've got a whole quarter to get through. And you have to be fair. So we do have terms of business that are structured and that go out and that are standardised. And I'd say probably 85% of our clients are on those. And then you do get other lenders who are like, right, for 6 months, can we have these kind of terms? And we're a small company that luckily we can be a little bit flexible as and when needed.
Yeah, because it is a very interesting sort of situation we're in, and obviously, and you mentioned at the sort of top end of this that the market's a little wobbly, and sometimes that. How is that actually sort of, and how does that impact sort of people's hiring patterns, and obviously how busy you are? Because you said underwriters are pretty rare. So what are you finding out there in the market at the moment? What's sort of available, and are there enough candidates out there? And what sort of, yeah, what's the sort of outlook, I guess, on the sort of, if someone was looking to hire someone?
It's definitely the second most difficult period of time in recruitment for me in 20 years. So
Wow.
um, there are candidates out there who are looking. A lot of them are scared to move because they're so worried. With COVID, it it was quite horrendous. I had 6 offers out, which had all been accepted, and everybody had handed in the notice to different lenders, all different lenders. And then COVID happened, and 6 of the offers were retracted. They couldn't go back to the previous jobs because they'd handed in the notice. They weren't entitled to anything because they weren't employed, and it left a really sour taste, and it really did mess up people's livelihoods. So the market is thinking, hang on a minute, it's a little bit ropey here. I don't know if I want to step into uncertainty. So they've still got that passion in their belly, and they want to join a lender that wants to lend. There's a lot of lenders being very hesitant at the moment, so they want to join a lender where they're growing and they're innovative and they can be who they want to be, and there's career growth, and they're happy to go to work, and the team's nice, and there's great culture and all of those kind of things. But when it actually comes down to signing the document, they then have to look and think, can I take this risk for 6 months in probation in order to make this move? Now, the answer should be absolutely take it, because there's no certainty with anybody. We saw with Marsthaven that you can look at an established brand, and a lot of candidates will come to me and say, look, I really want to join. It's got to be established. It's got to be established. And it doesn't make you safer to join an established brand. If
Yeah.
anything, they have more power to be able to bolster their teams so that they can ease up 10% of their workforce if they need to create space. They have the support there, whereas a small company need to safeguard every single person that's on board. So I don't think it's any safer to join a bigger company.
Yeah,
I
just look
think
at
that
all the
there's a
big tech
miscommunication.
companies out there,
Yeah,
your Facebooks and everything. It's like 10,000 people, poof, just gone.
yeah,
And it's nothing.
yeah,
Whereas you're right, a smaller company, that one person is maybe 25% of your workforce. So, that's you're far more important to
yeah.
them than,
It,
1 in 10,000.
that's right. And when you're trying to train somebody, and when you've only got 4 people in the company, and you know how much time it takes to dedicate to train somebody up, and then you lose that individual, and you've got to go through that whole process again. Not only does it mean that you haven't got that space filled, you're also taking away all of your own working time in order to build somebody else up. So it's almost like you lose 2 people
Yeah.
before you're ahead. So it is taking 2 steps back to take 3 steps forward. It's a horrible process for smaller companies. So I've always been a fan of smaller companies. I've always worked for smaller companies, and I personally like being able to eyeball the CEO and see the excitement and the fear and the plans and the passion and the dream, and be really involved on the emotional journey of it all. But candidates, yeah, are very, very flaky at the moment when it comes to accepting the role. There's a couple of things that are big, big pointers at the moment. So inflation's huge at the moment, as everybody is knowing. I think the best diet that anybody can go on at the moment is just the cost of food diet. I think food has gone up astronomically, electricity, housing, people's mortgages. People are concerned with their day-to-day bills.
Yeah.
And that's people at all levels. We're not just talking about people that are entering the sector. We're talking about people that are 20 years plus in the sector thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to afford this 3 bedroom home? So there is people, so say if somebody's on 45,000 as a bridging underwriter and they want 55,000, it sounds astronomical for somebody to want a 10,000 increase. But what the candidate is saying in their mind is it's not a 10,000 increase because the cost of living is so high now. It's really only a 5,000 increase because my expenses have gone up hugely
Yeah.
and I need that money. And in order for me to take that risk, I need to be rewarded for it financially, not through vanity, not through greediness, just through financial need. So you've got that element from the candidate's perspective, but then you've also got the lender's perspective that I understand just as much, that they have a company to safeguard. We're all trying to survive. Everybody is trying to survive a a tempestuous sea, I guess, is a good way to put it. But you know, the tide is definitely strong at the moment, and we need to make sure that yes, okay, it's nice for a candidate to get a big increase, but we also need to look after our other employees at the same time, whilst maintaining an ability to also pay for the increased rent, for the increased electricity, for the increased all of the corporation increases that we've also seen. So you've got clients who don't want to pay an increase in salaries and can't afford it. You've got candidates who can't afford to move unless there is a big increase. And there's a real butting of heads here, which is why there are so many people turning down vacancies and why it's so hard to find the right individuals. Because if you speak to lenders, we could focus on the people that are unfortunately in the market. And there are some, when people are in the market, there's some great people available in the market.
Yeah. So when it comes to there's this sort of, I guess, the expectations then of all the candidates, are they not really matching up then at the moment with what's on offer?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So,
Yeah. Oh dear.
um, yeah, it is a tough market. So the candidates, the one thing that we could do is if salaries aren't being met, the other thing that people want is flexibility. So we could offer lower salaries, or when I say we, I mean I'm speaking as a lender. We could offer a lower salary for more flexibility, um, or we could offer less flexibility but for a higher salary. So it has to be one or two, and I think it's gonna have to be the lenders that are going to give and are going to need to be accommodating, purely because if you want the talent that's in the market, there isn't much talent that is actively looking. So you
Yeah.
have to pay.
Yeah. And when you say flexibility, what sort of things would that include?
Most people want to work from home at least 2 days a week. It's not ideal for a lot of lenders. So during COVID, it worked fairly well. But I would say that 80% of lenders now want people back 5 days a week in the office. And I would say 80% of candidates want hybrid working. So 3 days in the office, 2 days from home. So again, you've got that complete two different voices. They're not singing from the same hymn sheet. And the candidate who's even been made redundant but was working from home 4 days a week doesn't want the extra cost of having to come into London or go into Manchester to go in 5 days a week, because it adds so much onto their personal expenses. And they have become accustomed to, they've bought the COVID dog, or they're being able to take their child to school twice a week. There's an emotional baggage now, that if you're coming into the office, what are you sacrificing? And what have you actually, what have those people who have been working from home experienced in order for them to want to continue working from home?
Yeah, it's a
I
very
work from home
interesting.
5 days a week, and I
Yeah, me
miss
too.
the office, I've got to say.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah,
I,
I don't. That's
So
there's a, yeah. So I've always been remote ever since joining FBSE, and it
have
is
you?
it's a strange sort of situation because you initially when you first get into this, and this is what I think people did, you've got to be very strict on yourself, and I imagine a lot of the lenders out there are worried about, giving people that sort of freedom where they won't. And it's a surprisingly sort of political issue, occasionally, the work from home, that people are really
Yeah.
strong on one way or the other. And I personally don't have any sort of strong feelings. I enjoy it. But I was never opposed. I was in a branch in the Barclays for ages and had to go there every day, and it was absolutely fine as well. It all depends, doesn't it? I guess on the job and what's expected of you, and as long as
Yeah.
the expectations are set, is that something that you find, like, let's say for example a sort of BDM role or an underwriter, um, are people coming in with sort of very clear sort of expectations of candidates from the start, or is that something you think is still a bit vague? Because when I saw it, there was a when I sort of last got a job, which is probably 5 6 years ago, it was relatively vague, the sort of job description. It's kind of generate more business, and that's it. So how has that sort of changed, or has it?
No, people can still be quite vague on in terms of the job specifications. A lot of the times, we don't even receive job specs from a company. They'll just say, "Kerry, you know what we like," and that is my job spec, and which it isn't always helpful if somebody's coming from a corporate background, say like a Barclays, because you're used to a process and you're used to being able to see what's required of you. Um, but for a smaller company, it can work really well because you can go in with so many skills and so many hats to wear, and you can wear all of them. So it depends on the situation. Um,
I do find that whenever I kind of get approached by people, they go, "Oh, this here they go," and um, it seems to be a bit of a scattergun approach to the sort of recruitment. Is that sort of just what it's like, as in you've got to hit 100 people to then potentially get, or 1,000 people to get maybe 10 that are interested? Is it that sort of difficult, or because I guess you've got to find the 1 or 2 people that aren't happy where they are, that are
yeah,
looking for something in that specific role in that industry. So it's a bit of a needle in a haystack, or is it kind of
yeah,
a little easier than
yeah.
that?
No, no, no. It's a complete needle in the haystack. There will be people that I will get in contact with that I haven't spoken to for say 2 years, and their jobs have completely changed in those 2 years. So I'm giving them a call about, a case manager vacancy, and they may be a telephone BDM by that time and be not in back office. They want to be sales, and their next step, instead of being underwriting, is going to be out on the field as BDM. Um, but if I don't approach them, then I won't know. So I do approach people, and it is almost like a scattergun. It has to be a numbers game. You have to be continuously on the phone. Everybody that you're speaking to, you're asking, "Do you know of anybody?" Um, and sometimes you catch people on a Monday, and they're quite chirpy because they've had the weekend. But if you speak to them on the Thursday, they're quite happy to send their CV to you. So it just depends on the stars aligning. But it's a lot of talking, and it's not persuading. We don't like to persuade anybody to take a job. I'd rather somebody didn't take a job than take the wrong one.
Yeah,
Um, but
it's a pretty big
it,
decision.
yeah, but sometimes you put yourself last, and you go round in this autopilot for years and years in the same job, just paying
Yeah.
the bills, looking after the family, going to work, paying the bills. And it's not until somebody actually stops you in your track and says, "Hang on a second, are you happy?"
Yeah, I think
That
it's called
you actually,
comfortably miserable. That's the,
yeah.
it seems
And
to
and
be
the
a lot of
horrible
people.
thing is that's the best years of our lives. That's not just your pastime. That is we will never be as healthy and able as we are today. So, in a few decades time, when we think, "Oh, it's all right, I can just put up with this for another till the kids are grown," or whatever, um, we might not be in a able body by then. So certain situations may have happened that we won't necessarily be able to retire and go traveling for 10 years. We've got to find happiness where we are in today's world rather than always putting it off, because tomorrow doesn't happen. And I think that's why you need an external voice sometimes as a recruitment consultant, somebody who's not just there to go, right, we've got these 5 vacancies. We're there to say, what are you happy with? What aren't you happy with? What are you looking for? What's going to help you? How is this going to fit into your life for the next 5 years? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel prepared? Do you feel like you've had enough knowledge on this vacancy, on the company, or on the sector? Like, you've just got to really get down to the nitty gritty as to, you're dealing with a human being, and not just that human being, you're dealing with all of the offshoots. You're dealing with their wife or their husband, their partner. You're dealing with their children, the children's schools, their location. There's an offshoot to everything, and I think that you really need to be humane in the way that you're offering a service when you're a recruitment consultant.
Yeah, because it does sound that like that personality test that you mentioned at the start, it seems kind of strange to me, because I would have thought being empathetic and really open would be a plus to this sort of industry. But I guess, is it because you've got to be relatively thick-skinned because there's a lot of no's and a lot of kind of
Yeah.
time spent just pounding the phones and that kind of thing?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's loads of cold calling. You're speaking to people who don't want to speak to you. I think after so many years, that doesn't happen so much, because again, you're speaking to people who, even if they're not recruiting, they're happy to talk to you for a couple of minutes to see how you are, and you've got that. How's life? How's the kids? How's the dog? That kind of conversation going. But initially, when you become a recruitment consultant, you are banging the phones. So you're calling everybody. They don't want to talk to you. They've got their jobs. They're really busy. They think that you're in the same profession. There's certain professions that get tarred with a brush, like us and estate agents. And 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 I personally, I've met lots of recruitment consultants along the way who I haven't liked at all, and have been really cutthroat, and they just want to obviously send your CV to their clients to make a deal. And I think that the agency that I joined in IT recruitment was just helping me to establish that cold calling mentality. That it was a bit like I can't remember what the film is with Tom. Is it Tom Cruise, where you literally don't ever get off the phone, and he's
Oh,
literally he just finds a way of basically sellotaping the phone to his hand
like
so
Jerry
that he can't
Maguire or
ever put
something.
it down. Yeah, Jerry Maguire. There we go.
Yeah.
And that is what it's like when you start in recruitment. You're literally phone call, phone call, phone call, phone call, um, and you need to understand that 97% of people are going to say no, but occasionally they say yes. And once you have that one relationship with somebody, and you find a client that, yeah, they are recruiting for 2 people, potentially 5 over the year, potentially 6 next year, and then it goes onwards and upwards. You're on an emotional journey together, and it's a lovely place to be, and it's worth all of those no's to get those yeses. Um, there's a lot more involved in recruitment than I think a lot of people see, and it is a lot of rejection.
Yeah. Would you say it's a very sort of, essentially, if you were to describe it, is it a sales job, or is it not really? Is it more like I don't know how to describe it even. Would you describe it as salesy?
No, it is a consultative. It's a consultation job, really. I think the word recruitment consultant, I think we need to, in most companies, I would say, yeah, it's a sales job. But I think at KFS Recruitment, we are different in the fact that we want to make sure that it's a long-term placement. We
Yeah.
probably recruit less people into the market than other agencies, but we have a very low rebate percentage as well. And I think that speaks volumes. I'd much rather we supported somebody saying no to a vacancy than try and push them into saying yes just to make the fee. So I would say it's much more consultation than it is sales. But the sales aspects comes from having your heart broken. It must be the same in lending. When a deal goes wrong, and you think you're going to get it, and it doesn't happen, and you feel so frustrated because you put all
Yeah.
of this work in.
I get
You
flashbacks
that
occasionally. Yeah.
yeah,
So
because you were a Southwest BDM, weren't you? And I
yeah.
remember speaking to you years ago. I've still got you on my phone actually as a Southwest BDM, and I remember speaking to you years ago that you do get a lot of rejection,
Yeah, you do.
and you've
I
got
get more than
you
most, I
have to
think,
be
but
salesy. You have
yeah.
to be salesy. I doubt that, but yeah, you have to be salesy to operate in a fact where you just dust it off, and
Yeah.
it
As
shouldn't matter.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with everything. The occasional sort of yeses generally outweigh quite a lot of no's because they're sort of relatively valuable to you in not necessarily just monetary wise, but in terms of just a bit of relief from the sort of calling. But I am conscious of the time. So one sort of last question for you. That do you this is sort of twofold really. Do you have any kind of tips for sort of someone that is currently looking for a job, and then also for the same question but for lenders that are trying to recruit, something that they might not considered trying, other than obviously getting in touch with you, which we'll get to shortly,
Mhm.
but that they could maybe implement to try and improve their chances of finding a job or a candidate.
Yeah, a tip for candidates is make sure that you spell check your CV. I don't want to spell check anybody's CV because I think that it's really dishonest of me to present a CV that hasn't been created by a candidate. So I don't take out the spelling errors, and I'm very truthful about that with clients.
Yeah.
So
Is that
definitely
an
spell
actual
check your
problem
CV.
with the kind of,
It,
the
yeah,
level that you're recruiting at? Wow.
all levels, all levels, right to senior management, all levels. Um, in somebody's CV, make sure that you've got your products there. So if you're working in the bridging space, make sure that you're adding terms like heavy refurb, or if it's development, ground floor up, or you whatever it might be. Make sure that you put as many terminology like or product uh, names on there, so that you can a HR person who's looking at your CV who doesn't necessarily understand the lending sector, but has got like a ticky box form and they know what keywords they're looking for. It's kind of keyword bingo, we call it. And just make sure all of your keywords are on there. And if you need help with a CV, just reach out to a consultant and say, look, can you read through this? Is there anything that I need to change? It doesn't cost anything. Um, just make sure that when that goes ahead, then it looks smart. When you meet people, be pleasant. Don't slag off your old employer, even if you really didn't like them. Speak
Yeah,
around that. Don't. Nobody wants. Um, Nobody wants somebody in their organisation who is miserable or feeling like they've been. Um,
kind of
what's the
forced
word?
into out of that job because they hated it into the new one, and they're
Yeah.
just escaping from one thing to another. Um, because yeah, the one term that I see or heard quite a few times was cultural differences,
Oh,
with the
yeah.
reason why why they left, and that means that either they were horrible or you were, one of the two, which is an odd one. And I think that they're good tips, especially obviously making sure you, because I would imagine with the keywords and everything in there, if you use a bit of the jargon in there, it just shows that you know it, and you operate in that space, which is handy. And what about on the lender side of things?
Oh, lenders, please offer some flexibility. Like, oh, if lenders could just offer 8 till 4 instead of 9 to 5, or 10 till 6, or 2 days from home, or it would make life so much easier for everybody. The more you give your employees, the more they're gonna give you. You'll get better employees if you are flexible, without a shadow of a doubt. Um, and yeah, just please understand that when we present a CV, we'll say what the candidate is looking for, and we've had a lot of situations over the last 18 months where, say, if a candidate's looking for 50,000, I will say that they're looking for 50,000. They want a 4 week notice period, and I'll stipulate that quite clearly, and then then they'll offer 44, 46, 47, but they're not looking for 44, 46, or 47. They're looking for 50. I promise you that we are not bidding. We're not saying 50 because we want a higher fee. We are saying 50 because if you don't offer 50, the likelihood is that there's going to be such a sour taste in the mouth that they just won't accept your job anyway. So come in at where the candidate wants to if they're within salary budget, but just really knuckle down before you interview. Can you realistically afford them? Is it within budget? And if so, be prepared to pay what they are looking for.
Yeah, because that sounds like I read a good book. I can't remember who it was by, but it was called Never Meet in the Middle, which it was, basically it was written by um, a chap that was an FBI negotiator, and he was saying that trying to always negotiate on everything just does exactly what you said. It sort of annoys both parties. Uh, so it's best to never meet in the middle, as in you just pick a figure that you're happy with and you offer that figure. Don't try and go up or
Yeah.
down either way, because if you're willing to pay it, you're willing to pay it, and if they're willing to accept it, then both sides are happy. But yeah, I think that's a very good tip, and one we do get quite a few lenders actually listen to this, so bear that in mind. And on that note, obviously, if
Yeah.
somebody does want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that, or you or your team?
Well, we're all on LinkedIn. So the whole team's on LinkedIn. So you can look at us at KFS Recruitment. So it's Kilo Foxtrot Sierra, not KFC. You can also go and have a little look at our website, which is just kfsrecruitment.co.uk. Or you can give us a call. We've got our telephone numbers on there, but my telephone number is 07765 008030. And just give me a call. I'm always happy to chat.
Perfect. And I'll make sure on all the descriptions that I put all your details in there. So just check below in the comment section or on the right on Spotify or wherever you're listening. And hopefully, yeah, do give Kerry a buzz or her team, and we'll take it from there. So thank you ever so much for your time, Kerry. Really appreciate it. And
It's
we'll
been
have
such
to
a
get you back
pleasure.
on. Perfect. Alrighty. Thank you again.
Thank
And
you so much, David.